It's not often that a new IP in the JRPG genre comes out and takes the world by storm, both critically and commercially. But that is exactly what happened with Clair Obscur Expedition 33. This game is hands down the best game of the year so far, and I really don't see anything overtaking it. From the visuals to the characters, the story, the combat system, everything about it clicked for me, and it is one of the greatest games I've played ever. It is definitely in my top 15, maybe top 20, somewhere in there, games of all time. And there's just a few little nitpicks here and there that keep it from getting into the top 10. But it is a game worth exploring. It is a game worth your time, and we're going to get into why right now. First off, the story is absolutely amazing. It is gripping, it is sad, it is full of grief, and it takes a lot of twists and turns. I will try not to go into spoilers during my review, but you might see some gameplay that you could view as a spoiler. So if you haven't beaten the game, favorite this, come back. If you have, then stick around, but I'll try my best not to spoil anything. As I moved along in the story, it starts off with this paintress that you have to go and defeat. That's the whole premise of it. There's the gourmage that takes out a ton of people of a certain age, and each year it gets lower and lower. So they send out expeditions to try and figure out what is causing this and how they can stop it. You are the latest expedition in a long line of expeditions, and your task is to do the exact same thing as all the other expeditions. Gather information and leave a journal, or defeat the paintress and stop this forever. Very basic in premise. It's very easy to follow and understand. You have a thing in the background that you are chasing towards, and that's how the story starts. That's not how it ends, though. There are so many twists and turns, and it subverts your expectations at every step along the way, adding layers and layers of story throughout the entire game and turning it on its head. What you set out to do isn't necessarily what you end up doing, but it is something that is intriguing and really hit home for me. This is a story about loss and grief and how different people deal with that said grief. It's about letting grief consume you. What does that look like? Is your whole world torn apart because of that? It's poignant, it's beautiful, and as someone who's experienced a decent amount of loss over the last few years, this game really, really connected with me in that way. It's a beautiful story made with some awesome characters. My favorite has to be Lune. I think she is just so cool. I love her movesets. I love her just outlook on the whole thing. She's more of like the scientist-based kind of character and just wants to soak up all this information and learn from everything that you guys are doing to try and help the next expeditions that come through if you guys aren't successful. She is constantly looking forward, keeping the group together, focused on the main objective. And I love the way she floats around the world. I think that is like the coolest way to get around. You can switch between characters while you're running around, but I found myself always coming back to Lune because of that floating that she has. I think it's just so cool. But each character has a lot of depth. Every character you come across that is in your party has their motivations. They have their own grief that they're going through, and they have their own inner demons that they're battling. And those are seen throughout the game, and it just adds such a layer to the storytelling that makes you connect with these characters, and it makes you want to proceed so you can find out what the heck is going on. I really haven't thought about a game's story like this one in about 5 years. It's probably The Last of Us Part 2 that was the last game that hit me in a way that this game did. Both stories are very sad, both stories are brutal, and there's twists and turns along the way that you don't see coming, and they are impactful. You think about these decisions, you think about these actions, and you think about the events that occur throughout the entire game. I haven't stopped thinking about Expedition 33 since I beat it. I ended up platinuming the game because I loved it so much, and this is definitely a story that will stick with me for a very, very long time. The huge standout of this game, though, isn't necessarily the story. You just heard me wax poetic about how amazing it is, but the real star here is the shot in the arm for the combat in this genre specifically. A lot of people like turn-based games, myself included, but a lot of people don't. They find it boring and they don't like to necessarily go through the menus and set up attacks and healing or whatever it may be. They want to feel like they are doing the action instead of putting an input into a menu and then the character moves and attacks. I personally like that, but I can get why people don't. What Expedition 33 does is kind of combine the action-oriented games with the turn-based oriented games and came up with a battle system that is incredibly engaging. It's not necessarily the first game to introduce kind of that action-oriented turn-based, but it does it extremely, extremely well. You choose an attack, whether that's like your base attack or a skill. You can use items, shoot a gun, gradient attacks. There's a lot there for you in combat, and each have their own specific benefits to them. But with every skill that you use, you have to time the buttons correctly. You'll choose the skill, choose which enemy you want to attack, and then a little diamond will come up with an X in it. And if you time that correctly on the last quarter of the diamond, you'll be able to do more damage and complete that said action. Now, if you miss it, you still will be able to attack with that skill. It just won't do as much damage, and it might get cut short a little bit. So it's really imperative that you get that timing down. It's not very difficult. Some moves are a little bit more difficult than others, but overall, it's fairly easy to figure out the timing. What I love, though, is the defensive agency that you have. You can dodge, which has a pretty forgiving window with dodging. You can parry, which has a shorter window, but is still relatively easy. And then you have your jump attacks, which there's a little symbol that pops up from the enemies. And if you time that jump right, you'll jump over their attack. You can press R2 and then shoot at the enemy. So there's multiple different ways. And if you are able to parry every single attack from an enemy, you will do a counter attack that can do a ton of damage. It's really awesome. It's super engaging and definitely one of my favorite parts of the game. To add another layer to the combat, you have the Pictos and the Lumina systems. Pictos are little items that you find throughout the world. You equip those and they eventually give you a skill, like a passive skill, where you might do 10% more damage if this, or if you get below 10% health, you'll do 50% more damage. There's so many throughout the world, and once you have those Pictos equipped, and you have them equipped for 4 battles, you'll learn that Picto and convert it into Lumina. From there, you can equip any Lumina as long as you have the Lumina points. And you can really get creative with the builds that you have. There's so many different options. So you could build somebody to be very, very skilled with the guns, where you're doing a ton of damage. You can have them do up to like 150% more damage on counterattacks. You can have it so your burn does twice the damage. Every time you apply burn, you apply 2 burns. Like, there's so many different things throughout the entire game that you find, and that is something I love. That system is so deep, and it gives you so much creativity and agency over the characters. Each character has their own Lumina points, and you can build them how you want. The last thing I'll touch on with the combat system is each character has their own system within the battle. I know it sounds like a lot, but it really, really works. Lune, for example, has her stain system. She uses magic of different elements, whether that's fire, lightning, water, or earth, and each one will generate a stain on her little weapon, her diamond little weapon. And as long as you have stains on there, you can use skills that will consume those stains and do extra damage, or give slow to an enemy for 2 extra turns or something like that. Verso, you have his almost Devil May Cry kind of ranking system. You start off at rank D, and then if you get up to rank S, that unlocks some special abilities in his skill tree, and he does a lot more damage. CL applies Foretell. There's these little cards that have sun and moon, and if you get enough sun and then do a skill with the moon, you will enter Twilight and do upwards of like 200% more damage. Mael has her little fencer stances, where you have defensive stance, offensive stance, and virtuoso stance, which have their own benefits to each of those, which is awesome. And then Minoko is basically your blue magic kind of guy, where if you have him in the party and you defeat these enemies, he collects their feet and learns the skills from them. It's really cool. I love how each of them has something different that you can learn and really, really get deep into mix and matching skills with the Lumina. And each of the Pictos also have little stat boosts, so you might be able to increase your speed by 500 and your crit chance by 20%. It's so cool. It's so deep. Definitely one of my favorite things about the game. But yeah, that's my kind of quick-ish review on this game. There's so much to be said. I could go so in depth about the story and everything else. I didn't even touch on the music, which is top-notch, one of the best soundtracks of any game that's ever come out. The environments are absolutely gorgeous. They're surreal. The enemies are varied. They have distinct attacks that have their own rhythm for parrying. There's so much optional content. The optional bosses are extremely difficult to take down, but when you do, you feel like you have mastered the game. It's one of the best games in the last 5 to 10 years, easily. I cannot recommend this game enough. Please go out and buy it. Support this small studio. It's their first ever game. If you have Game Pass, it's on there. But please, play this game. I cannot recommend it enough. But what did you guys think of Expedition 33? Obviously, I loved it, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments. So please, if you made it this far, like, share, subscribe, comment on the video. It really helps out, and I can't thank you enough. So, again, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one.